What's going on, guys? This is your boy Manny, and this is another episode of Talking Sports with Manny. So today we're going to dive into the wide receiver threes. These are wide receivers that are ranked between 25 to 36. Now, because these wide receivers are ranked wide receiver threes don't mean that they can't rise to wide receivers 2 or even possibly 1 at the end of the season. So these are guys that I feel like you can get later on in a draft. So mainly their ranking is because of their average draft position, not necessarily talent or production. So, guys, let's go ahead and dive in. At number 36, we got Deebo Samuels. This guy came in as the wide receiver 31 last year. His stats were 81 targets, 57 receptions, 802 reception yards, three receiving touchdowns. He also rushed for 159 yards and 3 additional touchdowns. This guy right here would be ranked much higher if it was not because of the injury. So for those of you guys that are playing Dynasty, this is definitely a guy that you need to grab because Deebo Samuels is the real deal. So coming in at number 35 is Jamison Crowder. This is a receiver that was ranked 26 last year. This guy right here with Sam Darnold was a target monster. I think that as Sam Darnold gets more accurate, you can see Jamison Crowder rise even higher in terms of catching ability and connecting on a lot of these targets because he had over 120 plus targets, but he only caught 78 passes. So I expect Jamison Crowder to have a big season this up-and-coming year. He had 833 reception yards last year and 6 receiving touchdowns. I expect Jamison Crowder to flirt with anywhere between 85 catches to about 95 catches next year. Yes, I said it. Jamison Crowder is a reliable target for Sam Darnold. And with the tight ends being out there, Herndon and Griffin, then they got Perriman, drafted a rookie in Denzel Mims. Jamison Crowder is the number 1 receiver in New York with Robbie Anderson leaving. So look for Jamison Crowder to have a big season. He's going to have, like I said, anywhere between 85 to 95 catches. Plus, I see him with over 1,000 yards and possibly about 8 to 9 touchdowns. So expect Jamison Crowder to flirt with wide receiver 2, maybe even wide receiver 1 numbers, depending on how much he connects with Sam Darnold. So Jamison Crowder, number 35. Coming in at number 34 is Mr. Hollywood Brown. Hollywood. All right, so Hollywood Brown, this guy right here, he's a cousin of Antonio Brown. He has tremendous talent. When he came in as a rookie, I was kind of scared because of his height and his stature, but he was able to handle the NFL really, really well. He was targeted 71 times, and a lot of his targets came on deep passes. So he caught 46 receptions for 584 yards and 7 touchdowns. Look for those numbers to go up this season. I think he had a very good connection with Lamar Jackson, and as Lamar Jackson continues to work on his game and his accuracy, look for Hollywood Brown to take another step. So he's definitely a guy that you want to grab. And he ended up as the wide receiver 46 last year. So this year I have him ranked at 34. He can definitely go higher. The only thing that scares me about Hollywood Brown is that a lot of his production come on deep passes. And being that Lamar had an MVP season, does he throw for that many touchdowns this year? You know, and then you have Mark Andrews out there. But outside of Mark Andrews, there's no other receiver really that's there to kind of take away from what Hollywood Brown brings to the table. So moving on along, number 33 is Dionte Johnson, okay? Dionte Johnson is a number 2 wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Forget about guys like James Washington. You know, what did he do when he had his opportunities? Okay. Dionte Johnson with bad quarterback play was targeted 92 times. He caught 59 catches for 680 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. So I expect him to be even better with Big Ben being healthy. So look for Dionte Johnson to really take another step. I know they drafted Chase Claypool, but I see Chase Claypool more as of maybe like a number 3 for that team. He's still going to be behind James Washington. So look for Dionte Johnson to be the number 2 guy, especially if you're playing Dynasty and you draft Dionte Johnson. Just imagine Juju Smith-Schuster leaving next year. Dionte Johnson easily becomes the number one receiver for Pittsburgh. And as long as Big Ben is healthy, look for him to spread the ball. At tight end, they don't really have – I mean, they brought in Ebron, who's going to take away some red zone touchdowns. But at the end of the day, Dionte Johnson is that next special wide receiver. Pittsburgh is great at drafting wide receivers, and Dionte Johnson's going to have a big season. So if you can get him, I think he's going like rounds 9, maybe even 10. If you can get him for that draft average, for that ADP right there, that's definitely a good place to get him. And his upside, he can flirt with mid wide receiver 2 numbers. So Dionte Johnson coming in at number 33. And number 32 is Brandon Cooks. This guy right here is going to be a weapon for Deshaun Watson. If you look at Will Fuller, he can't really stay healthy. You look at Kenny Stills, he's like another speed guy. So it seems like all 3 guys are speed guys between Brandon Cooks, Kenny Stills, and as well as Will Fuller. Deshaun Jackson loves to air the ball out. Yes, they got David Johnson, who's going to receive some catches, as well as Duke Johnson. But if you're looking for a legit number 1 wide receiver, it's Brandon Cooks, and he's going really, really late in drafts. So this is the guy that you want to grab. Last year with injuries, even though he played 14 games, he was hurt in a lot of those games. He had 72 targets, 42 receptions for 500-plus yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, I expect Brandon Cooks to be normal Brandon Cooks. What does normal Brandon Cooks looks like? Okay, every year he gets you about 1,000 yards, a little bit over that sometimes 1,200 yards, and he gets you about anywhere between 5 to 6 touchdowns. So that's a typical Brandon Cooks season and a typical Brandon Cooks year. But with the amount of targets that he's about to get, I expect Brandon Cooks to have anywhere between 100 targets to about 149 targets. Why do I say that? I say that is if he's coming in to be the guy that replaces DeAndre Hopkins, a lot of those targets is going to go to him. Even though he's a smallish kind of guy, he's proven he's the most proven wide receiver on that team. So I expect big things out of Brandon Cooks. And for where he's being drafted, that's very great value right there. So Brandon Cooks coming in at number 32. At number 31, I have DK Metcalf. He came in as the wide receiver 33 last year. Okay, he was targeted 100 times. He caught 58 of those for 900 yards and 7 touchdowns. When you're playing with Russell Wilson, who's one of the most special quarterbacks out there, he's going to make any receiver look great. A lot of guys are going Tyler Lockett, but you can definitely get DK Metcalf later on in the draft. And just kind of like how Lockett overtook Doug Baldwin, expect DK Metcalf in the next year or 2 to overtake Lockett. So DK Metcalf is definitely a guy you want to target in the draft. He had 100 targets. Expect those numbers to go up. Expect the 58 catches to definitely go up. And he's definitely going to have 1,000-yard receiving season this year. And who knows, he might overtake Lockett this year. But him and Lockett are going to be 1A, 1B. But if you can get DK Metcalf later on in drafts, like I said, this video and this podcast is pretty much about value where you're getting these guys. So I expect DK Metcalf to have a great season, and he can flirt with anywhere around 9 to 12 touchdowns. Yes, I said 9 to 12 because when you're playing with Russell Wilson makes guys look great. Remember those seasons when Doug Baldwin was getting high amounts of touchdowns? Remember when Golden Tate played with Russell Wilson, how great he looked? So, yeah, DK Metcalf at number 31. Coming in at number 30, I got Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd was targeted 148 times last year. He caught 90 balls last year for 1,046 yards. Okay, he also had 5 touchdowns. Now I expect Tyler Boyd's numbers to go way up. Why? Because the Cincinnati Bengals are going to suck this year. Okay, they're going to be losing. So coming from behind means opportunity. That means more targets, okay? I understand that A.J. Green is back. I understand that. I'm not even worried about A.J. Green. I understand they drafted T. Higgins. I'm not worried about T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd is going to be the most consistent wide receiver on that team this year. And, yes, even if you have A.J. Green, what that means is now Tyler Boyd gets to go against the number 2 corners or even the number 3 corners, depending on how well T. Higgins develops in his first year. So expect Tyler Boyd to be that sneaky wide receiver that can flirt with about 100 catches. He's going to flirt with, about 6 to 9 touchdowns, okay? He's going to flirt with 1,200 yards, even with A.J. Green. I'm telling you, with A.J. Green, expect for all of Tyler Boyd's numbers to go up, because as the Cincinnati Bengals play from behind, Joe Burrow is going to be looking for these receivers, okay? And with their tight end situation being so weak, Tyler Boyd is definitely a guy to eat up a lot of targets. So Tyler Boyd is coming in at number 30. And number 29, I have Michael Gallup. Last year, he came in as the wide receiver 22, okay? So if it wasn't because of Amari Cooper, I think that Michael Gallup might have been a top 15, maybe top 12 wide receiver. And I say this because Dallas was throwing the ball a lot last year. Even with Ezekiel Elliott being there, Dak Prescott really took another step. Last year, Gallup was targeted 113 times, okay? He caught 66 balls for 1,100 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns. Now, this year, with Dallas's defense being weaker, I expect Dallas to be playing from behind. And when you're playing from behind, that means that you're getting a lot of passing opportunities. You're getting a lot of passing yards. So I expect Michael Gallup to eat up targets. He's going to flirt with anywhere between 1,100 to 1,300 yards. Yes, I understand that Amari Cooper's there. But with the addition of CeeDee Lamb and with Dallas's defense being as terrible as I'm telling you, I expect all of Michael Gallup's numbers to go up. I understand that they paid Amari Cooper. I understand that. I understand they drafted CeeDee Lamb, but Michael Gallup is going to be that guy that's getting one-on-one coverage, and he's uber talented. This guy right here, he has the potential to be a special wide receiver. And there's going to come a time where they're going to have to move on from Amari Cooper and let Michael Gallup be the main guy or the second guy to CeeDee Lamb. I don't see them keeping all 3 wide receivers moving forward in the future, but Michael Gallup is definitely a guy that has a lot of talent, and he's only entering his 3rd season. So for those of you guys who are playing Dynasty, this is a wide receiver you definitely want to target, okay? Coming in at number 28 is Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry was actually a wide receiver 1 last year. He was the wide receiver 12. I understand that they had OBJ and Kareem Hunt in the pass game and some of these other guys that they had on the team, but he really developed something special between him and Baker, okay? Jarvis Landry has been a guy when he was in Miami that always had anywhere between 90 to 100 plus catches every single year. I expect Jarvis Landry to get back to that 100 catch type season this up and coming year. With the addition of Austin Hooper, another year of growth for Baker Mayfield, I expect Jarvis Landry to go off. So last year, he was targeted 138 times. He caught 83 receptions for 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. I expect the touchdown numbers to go up by 1 or 2 touchdowns. Now, remember, 1 or 2 touchdowns can take Jarvis Landry from one ranking to possibly jumping 3 or 4 people. So 1 or 2 touchdowns can take you up 5 or down 5. So I expect Jarvis Landry realistically to be a wide receiver 2. But when you watch my wide receiver 2 video or listen to the podcast, you'll see why Jarvis Landry is ranked where he is, okay? With the addition of Austin Hooper, having Njoku out there with a full season of Kareem Hunt, I know that the targets might not be there, but I still see Jarvis Landry as a guy that can possibly get more targets. I understand they have OBJ, but there's a possibility that OBJ might get traded. There's a possibility that OBJ might not work out. He might bounce after the season. So for somebody like me who has Jarvis Landry in some dynasty leagues, I'm going to capitalize on that. I'm going to capitalize on the fact that he was their number 1 receiver. I'm going to capitalize on the fact that him and Baker Mayfield have a special connection, okay? So who knows what his stats look like next year. Jarvis Landry can very well be a wide receiver 3. He can very well be a wide receiver 1. But I know you guys might look at this and say this is so disrespectful to have a wide receiver 12 from last year drop down to wide receiver 28. We'll see what happens. Like I said, this list is pretty much more so based off of average draft projections, like where these guys go in the draft opposed to stats. When it comes to wide receivers, man, it's so hard to kind of rank these guys. So much have to go right when it comes to targets and who you're playing with and who's your quarterback and the schedule and who's taking the top corners versus who's taking the number 2 corners. Because of OBJ, Landry's going against some of the lesser corners. Not, he's not going against top-tier corners. So a lot of these sneaky wide receivers like Boyd and Landry, this is where they get to eat, going against the number 2s and the number 3 corners out there each and every Sunday. So Jarvis Landry coming in at number 28, but he's definitely one of those sleeper guys that can definitely do way better than 28. So we'll see what happens at the end of the season. Coming in at number 27, I got DJ Chark. I really, really like DJ Chark playing with Gardner Minshew, the mustache guy. Last year, he had 118 targets for 73 receptions. He had 1,000 yards, and he had 8 touchdowns. DJ Chark is definitely expected to have all these numbers jump next season. Yes, they added the guy out of Colorado. Can't think of his name right now. They have a few receivers here and there that they've been grooming for the past few years who can possibly break out like DJ Chark did this past year. But I like Chark, man. He's going really, really, really late in drafts, and he's definitely a guy that you can grab. He came in wide receiver 17 last year. He was almost top 15 wide receiver. He could have easily have been a wide receiver 12, okay? But getting him mid-draft, late draft in some, he has a lot of upside, and Jacksonville is one of those teams that suck, and they always play from behind. So when you're playing from behind, your stats are inflated. But we love that playing fantasy. So DJ Chark is definitely a guy that I will not be surprised if he had 10 touchdowns. I will not be surprised if DJ Chark had 12 receiving yards, 1,200 receiving yards next year. I will not be surprised if he flirts with close to 90 to 95 catches. So DJ Chark coming in at number 27. So at number 26 is A.J. Brown. I know a lot of guys were mad at me on my last video/audio that I was not able to include A.J. Brown in as a wide receiver 2. I think I only had one sophomore in my wide receiver 2, and it was Terry McLaurin. Now, A.J. Brown gets to play a full season with Tannehill, okay? Now, after a year, they've kind of figured out A.J. Brown. They're going to figure out a lot of these guys, a lot of these rookies from this past year. So with A.J. Brown, he was very efficient. He was targeted 84 times, and he caught 52 balls for 1,000 yards, 51. He had 8 receiving touchdowns, and then he also had a 60-yard rush for a touchdown. So a total of 9 touchdowns for A.J. Brown. He's a special talent. He was my favorite wide receiver coming out of the combine. The guy is special. He's big. He's fast. People said DK Metcalf, but I was looking at A.J. Brown when he was talking to Steve Smith and kind of breaking down numbers and kind of breaking down, routes and things of that nature. So if he gets more targets, it's kind of crazy to think this guy can really, really, really put up some serious numbers next year. He seemed to be a deep guy in his first year, but he can run some routes, okay? He's an all-around guy. So I'm really excited to see how he's used next year. So A.J. Brown coming in at number 26. He was a number 21 last year. And like I said, he only did all that he has done in only 84 targets. I expect him to have well over 120 targets next year, being the main guy. Corey Davis does not scare anybody. So A.J. Brown is going to get plenty targets, and he's going to have an opportunity to really show that he is a star wide receiver. So to wrap this up, Coming in at number 25, who was the last guy on our list, is A.J. Green. It was tough for me not to have A.J. Green as a wide receiver 2. I put him at wide receiver 25 and really the top wide receiver 3 out of this whole thing. I like A.J. Green a lot because when he's healthy, he's one of the best wide receivers in the entire league. This guy can take the top off the defense. He can run any kind of route. He's big, he's strong, he's long. It's all going to come down to health. Like I said, the Bengals, you want to buy Bengals players this year. They're going to be losing a lot, so that means they're going to be passing a lot. I can see A.J. Green having some serious monster games this year. It's all going to come down to, can he stay healthy? But if he is healthy, he is a monster. And I saw reports that he wants to play 4 more years. I don't think he plays 4 more years, but I do see him having a productive rest of his career. I see maybe 2 more great seasons out of A.J. Green. He's a guy that you want to buy in the draft for the right price. He's a guy that I don't think that you trade for, but who knows? Maybe you can get great value for A.J. Green. So, guys, this wraps up my wide receiver 3 episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please follow me on social media. On YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. On Twitter, my handle is TS with Manny. On Facebook, Talking Sports with Manny. Follow me there. I post lots of great content. I post lots of updated news and things of that nature. So you definitely want to connect with me. And on Instagram, it's TS with Manny. So, guys, hit me up on Twitter. I'm going to post this thing out, and we're going to have a discussion. I want you guys to let me know where I went right, where I went wrong. Give it to me. I love to talk sports 24/7, and that's what we do here at TSWM, Talking Sports with Manny. We always talking. I got some great stuff coming for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and can't wait to do the next episode. This is something that I'm doing new, getting more visual for you guys on YouTube. And for those that are listening on a podcast, thank you guys as well. Please be sure to subscribe on Apple. Leave me a rate and a review. If you're feeling my videos, if you're feeling my content, please share this thing with at least one other person. Thank you guys so much, and y'all be blessed.